So how are you liking this lesson so far? It's a little bit confusing, but we will straighten things out, so just bear with me. There's a lot of insight to share with you. In the last video, we went over Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim vet haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, please note that the word created in our Bibles did not exist in the original Hebrew language. We will go over this in detail shortly, so please bear with me. I want to go slow as learning Hebrew isn't easy, but it is fun and should be a challenge. Your takeaway from these lessons is that you will come away with a deeper understanding of the creation story that allows you to delve deeper into your own study of your own Bibles. Now, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1 reads again, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim vet haaretz. Now, if I'm saying this incorrectly, if anybody knows Hebrew, let me know. In the beginning, God fattened the heavens and the earth. Now I exchanged the fattened with to create. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 reads, The earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Now if you are thinking this is kind of boring so far, just wait. The story is about to unfold here as we dissect the English with the Hebrew. Now keep in mind the Egyptian myth of creation as I shared with you in the introductory video. Remember, the Egyptian god came up out of the primordial waters. This is about to get interesting. Now the story of Elohim, in contrast to the Egyptian creator, becomes extremely interesting as the god Ra came up out of the primordial waters and was chased through the sky by a demon of the night. Elohim did not run. No one gave chase to him. In fact, through the language of Hebrew, we are shown that darkness was actually put in its proper place. The Hebrew version of Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 reads like this. V'haaretz heita tova bohu v'hoshek al pene tehom v'rucha Elohim merpet al pene hemayim. Again, the scripture reads a bit choppy or broken form of English. But to go through the definitions so you can copy them down for later reference, let's go over the Hebrew definitions of these Hebrew words. Earth, haaretz. Strong's Dictionary reference 776. We know this means ground, land, world, or country. Was, heata. Strong's Dictionary reference 1961. This means to exist, to become, to come to pass. It comes from the word chava, Strong's Dictionary reference number 1933, meaning to breathe or to be. Heata also comes from another word, Strong's Dictionary reference number 183, ava, to wish for, to covet, to greatly desire, to long for. Now this is interesting, as these choice of words Elohim used, as the Egyptian myth details, the Egyptian god formed himself out of a great desire and spoke himself into being. He became two beings as he gave himself an eternal soul that worked in agreement with his heart and mind. These two forms of himself would set out to create. Now, no, I am not saying that the Egyptian God and Elohim are the same God. I am saying that God used specific words in Hebrew that can be compared to the Egyptian creation story so that the Israelites living in Egypt who took on the ways of the Egyptian belief would find contrast through similar accounts and determine for themselves that the God of the Hebrews was the one true living God. Now I digress, but let's carry on with the Hebrew definition. The next word is formless, tohu. Strong's Dictionary reference is number 8414. This means empty, void, and indistinguishable ruin and darkness, vehoshek. Strong's dictionary reference 2822 is hoshek, and it means the dark, darkness, figuratively and literally. It means misery, destruction, death, ignorance, sorrow, obscurity, and wickedness. Was over. Al. Strong's dictionary reference number 5921. This means above, upon, against, because of, beside, between, and touching. The face. Alpene. Strong's dictionary reference number 6440. Pene. Meaning the face, both literally and figuratively. It means to accept, to be against, anger, battle, because, forefront, endure, over. Of the deep, tehom. Strong's dictionary reference number 8415. This means an abyss of surging water, especially the deep, the main sea or the subterranean water supply, a deep place or depth. From Strong's dictionary reference 1949, means to make an uproar or agitate, destroy, move, make a noise. It also comes from Strong's dictionary reference number 2000, to put in commotion, to disturb, to drive, destroy, break, consume, crush, trouble. And the spirit, ruach, from Strong's reference number 7307, meaning wind by resemblance of breath, a sensible or violent exhalation, like figuratively, anger, life by resemblance of spirit, but only as a rational being, whatever that means. Breath, blast, courage, mind, spirit, whirlwind. God, Elohim, from Strong's number 430, which means power and strength. Moved, merapet. Strong's dictionary reference number 7363. This means to be relaxed, to flutter, to move, to shake. On or was over. Again, al. Strong's dictionary number 5921, meaning above or on. The waters, hamayim. Strong's dictionary reference number 4325, meaning water, juice, urine, semen, wasting, flood, spring. Now, as boring as this is going to seem, please follow through with me on the Hebrew pronunciation. Earth. Do you remember what that is? The earth, haaretz. Hey, aleph, resh, sadeh. Haaretz. To pronounce the word, we have to dissect the individual letters. Hey becomes h, aleph becomes a, resh becomes re, sadeh becomes ts. Haaretz. Was, heyata. Hey, yod, tav, hey. Heyat, ha. To pronounce the word, we have to dissect the individual letters. Hey becomes hey, yod becomes ya, tav becomes ta, and hey becomes h. Formless, tohu, tav, hey, vav, or wow. To pronounce the word, we have to actually dissect the individual letters. Tav becomes to, hey becomes ho, vav or wow becomes w. Tohu. Darkness, hoshek, hey, shin, kof, h, sh, k. To pronounce the words, we have to dissect the individual letters. Hey becomes ho, shin becomes she, kaf becomes k. Hoshek. Was. Al. Ayin, lamed. That one's easy peasy. Face, pene. You try. Pe, nun, yod. P, n, y. P, n, y. Pe becomes pe, nun becomes na, yod becomes y, pene. Deep, tehum. Spirit, ruach. God, Elohim. Moved, merepet. Mem, resh, het, pe, tav. On, al. The face, pene. The waters, hamayim. He, mem, yod, mem. Haimim. Hamayim. Again, he becomes ha, mem becomes ma, yod becomes yi, mem becomes So Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 in English reads, "Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved over the waters." In Hebrew, Vaheretz hayata tohu vabohu vehoshek el pene tehom rehuha Elohim merepet al pene hamayim. Now Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 in English reads, "Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved over the waters." So what do you think the Hebrew interpretation would read like? Well, putting my layman's interpretation to it, void and empty does not mean to be without shape. I believe that void in the Hebrew sense means to be without a systematic function of order. The earth was a wilderness of a wasteland, without conformity in the way of a pattern that brought a repeated pattern of orderly conduct. To assume the earth was without shape may be a little bit stretching things, because perhaps this wasn't the original intention of the Hebrew language. To be without form in Hebrew also means to be desolate. The earth at this time was not yet fattened and nothing was on it, so it was not yet inhabited, so of course it was void and a desert wasteland. Now, the darkness in this scriptural context has a figurative meaning, as darkness can also be attached to our emotional uneasiness. Darkness has a sense of foreboding, as it creates in us deep emotional fears. The scriptural definition of darkness in Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 is a spiritual darkness that has evil intentions. The fabric of its being is destruction, as it brings about decay and death. The darkness that hides within the shadows attaches itself to our emotional sense of safety because of what darkness is. Its origins are spiritual nature. Elohim, who is spirit, fluttered over the waters for a specific reason. Do you have any idea what maybe that reason might be? Looking at the context of Scripture, we see two figurative aspects: Elohim, who is good, and darkness, which is bad. There is a conflict within this dynamic of the creation story that our translated Bibles overlook. So in the next video, we will discuss God, the Creator, and the Egyptian impostor, and exposing the hidden spiritual concepts within the creation story that takes us back to a time before the beginning of time and allows all of this stuff to make sense. Welcome back to A Study in Genesis. By now, you should be able to recognize and pronounce the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, He, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet, Yod, Kof, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Sade, Kof, Resh, Sin, Tav. And now you have an understanding of the reason why Moses was given the inspiration to share God's story of creation. The Genesis story is the true story of creation, but told to the Israelites in a way that they could understand. They had first-hand knowledge of the Egyptian creation story, and the words of Elohim dismantled the myth by revealing himself within a story that they could relate to. Now, if you are a parent or a teacher, you will understand that the best way to be understood is to take your level of understanding and stand it up against the level of understanding someone else has. For example, if I wanted to talk to you about cars, but you had no knowledge about cars or had a small understanding about them, I would share with you my idea, but in a way that you could relate to. If you only knew about bikes, I could talk to you about cars in a way that would bring the similar aspects about cars and bikes together to share with you what is the superior vehicle. This is what the Genesis story does, as the creation story shares with us the hidden aspects of Elohim through the language of Hebrew while dismantling the Egyptian creation myth at the same time. That's why reading Hebrew and understanding it so far maybe seem a bit confusing, because we're approaching this from a Christian state of mind. Elohim has no equal, but he brought elements of creation that were similar to the Egyptian creation myth that allowed the Israelites to understand Elohim separately from what they believed while living in Egypt. So here, I'd like to talk to you about the God, Elohim, the creator, and the Egyptian imposter. Now, understanding the Egyptian creation myth can be quite problematic and challenging. The study does not take the initiative to seek an in-depth explanation into Egyptian mythos, but this only is to give you a basic knowledge to help further understanding of your Hebraic word study. Now, Moses had an extensive knowledge of Egyptian religion, and he knew of the hidden mystical practices. As scripture tells us, he was well versed in the ancient ways. Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and action. Acts chapter 7, verse 22. Powerful in speech speaks of fluidity, coherence, confidence, pronunciation, and direction. Moses did not have a stuttering problem, as many leaders suggest. Moses was powerful in speech and in action. Who do you know in the public eye like that? Powerful leaders: Martin Luther King, Hitler, Karl Marx, Tony Robbins, the guy with the bright smile, sports coaches, maybe even you. Maybe you are a wonderful motivator as you speak your faith with direction and determination, and results happen. One does not have to be loud in order to be powerful in speech and in action. Look at the ministry of Jesus. He was powerful in speech and in action. At age 12 years old, Jesus was educated in godly wisdom as he taught the leaders in the temple. Moses was a man of faith. He followed the ways of Egyptology or Kemeticism. What spells he spoke invoked the so-called gods into action. He was a leader, and God chose him to become a leader and a spokesman for Elohim Most High. Tutmosis was the pharaoh of Egypt in the 18th dynasty. His name means Thoth is born. The previous era had multiple transitions of faith and deity worship. The overall creation story began with a single deity rising up from primordial waters. Now, the confusing twist is how this one deity became many. It was believed that in the old kingdom of Egypt, many gods ruled at once, or a specific area of the world that they created. But the creation story began with 4 main deities in some creation myths, and these deities ruled the earth with their female counterparts. The Egyptians associated these deities with amphibians and reptiles. Frogs represented the male deities, and the snakes represented the female deities. Here's a sideline note. When you read Revelation, take notice that the hidden Egyptian details, such as snakes and frogs. you will be surprised to glean a deeper and better understanding and meaning within the last book of the Bible. Now, it was believed that the interaction between these deities, male and female, created an imbalance upon the world. The chaotic unrest caused another deity to rise up out of the waters, but he did not rise up alone. This deity would be worshipped as the sun god Ra, and the one to accompany him was believed to be the more powerful, but in a selfless act, he decided to take a lesser role in rulership. Now, Thoth or Thoth is the Greek name for the Egyptian deity Tehuti. He was often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or baboon. Thoth or Tehuit was believed to be self-begotten. Although he rose up out of the water with Ra, Thoth was not a created being. He was believed to be self-produced and served as a mediator between good and evil. He helped maintain the universe by riding the sky alongside Ra's boat. Now his female counterpart rode along the other side of the boat, and together they would accompany the sun god and carry the sun across the sky to safety. As ultimate deity, Thoth had many tasks. Now the Egyptians revered him as having ultimate power and control. He was the true author of the knowledge of heaven and earth. He rivaled all the other power of the gods. Tehuti was the author of writing, and he was noted to develop scientific knowledge and was the master of every law, physical and moral. Now, without this god, no other god would exist, according to Egyptian beliefs. If no other god existed, then all creation would not exist. To the Egyptian, it was that simple and that complicated. Tehuti, or Tehuit, or Thoth, whatever the name he went by, was the keeper of the secrets of magic and sacred arts. This is the God that Moses and his kingdom believed in. The Israelites had oral tradition to cling to, but this was dwindling as Egyptian masters held Israel in their fearful grip. Living in Egypt and having acquaintances or friends, Israel saw signs and wonders, to be sure. These things were used against them at the mere mention of Tutmosis' name, and his name was actually considered the equivalent of paying homage to Thoth or Tehuti, the ultimate creator himself. So just by speaking the Pharaoh's name, one was actually paying homage to the god. And God tells us that Elohim says you will not invoke other gods across your lips. This is one of the commandments given to Moses. The 10 Commandments actually are commands against Egyptian pagan worship. Now, when Elohim showed Moses how creation came to be, the story was and is the truth. It isn't the Christian story. The Christian story comes from the Roman Emperor Constantine. And this isn't the Jewish story. The Jewish story comes from Judea, from the Talmud. And this Hebraic story does not come from any story that man can claim to know. The story that was told to Moses was Elohim's story, and Elohim entrusted it to Moses, who knew the Egyptian creation story. Moses could see and recognize the falsehoods just by how the Hebrew God talked to him. The Hebrew God, Elohim, was firm but fair, loving and honest, and in telling of his story, Elohim did not embellish. He did not boast. He just told it like it was. So here is God's story from the Hebrew perspective. This is going to bring all the other videos and understandings together. At the head, God fattened the heavens and the earth. It came to pass that the earth was a desolate wasteland, It was without function, as it was in a formless state, a state of confusion, just as Elohim desired it to be. It was empty and darkness, the destructive force of nature that exists as something intangible and unseen, was over the surface of the waters. It caused the waters to surge in uproar, uprooting itself, and I, Elohim, in my spirit held back the darkness by brooding over the waters. I calmly, with a wind that I am, stood against the darkness. The power of my might, that is as strong as the wind, fluttered over the waters, keeping the waters calm, keeping destruction that is rooted in darkness away from the waters. I alone protected these waters, and I alone held the darkness back. Now, this is paraphrased in my layman's terms, but this is using the Hebrew words for word definitions. And this contrasts the Egyptian story, because now the Egyptian story is laid to rest with the Israelites as they are told the truth. Elohim shared with them deep insight by sharing with them knowledge they could relate to. The Egyptian deity was chased in the sky by a night demon. Elohim dealt with the darkness directly. No prayers from his people were given to him to strengthen him. He dealt with the darkness before mankind was ever made. The creation story is the true story that erases all Egyptian fable. Moses was taught to believe in the Egyptian creation story. The writings of ancient Egypt tell the creation story of how one God formed himself into many. This God came into being out of a deep desire and longing from within. He uttered himself into existence. Casting a spell, he gave himself an eternal soul that worked in agreement with his desire. Once existing without shape, this God had a dual likeness, invisible and invisible and visible. Together through thought and action, this duo deity that was once one would set out to create. Why? No one knows. Just by the utterance of the name chosen, the item came into being. Things of the air and the waters. From the waters called new, things were created from the deity that came from it, according to Egyptian myth. Now this again is the belief that Moses knew. It makes sense that Egypt would have a creation story similar to that of the Hebrews, but different. Isn't it said that the word of mouth is the best form of advertising? Word of mouth gets the best results as it is highly influential. Now, going back to the Babylonian dispersal, when Elohim divided up the nations and separated them with different languages, it is easy to see how the memory of the creation story, told as oral tradition, would have common traits among all cultures. The thought leaders within each nation would have collaborated with others within their own nation to gain ideas and to validate their belief of how creation happened. Now imagine yourself sitting at a table and you have it in your mind, you believe that your grandparents were married for 30 years. You talk to your mom who tells you that they were married for 41 years. Then you go talk to your grandmother's sister who tells you that she has letters that date the relationship another 2 years. Well, you decide to go to your grandfather whose memory is failing, but he assures you that he and your grandmother were married 52 years. You know the ages of your grandparents, and you take all this information into account, and you draw your own conclusions. But guess what? You never once mention or refer to the marriage certificate. Problem solved. Now, the creation story spoken among the nations of Babylon may have had a common foundation to start from. But as you can see, it changed over the years with embellishments. How can a nation who doesn't no longer speak the language of Elohim consult Elohim? Another interesting issue is moving forward to the time of Abraham. He bore a child who was half Hebrew and half Egyptian. Hagar was an Egyptian handmaiden, and after a time she and her son were sent out into the wilderness. It makes sense that Hagar would take her child back to Egypt, the land of her forefathers. When in Egypt, she and her son would tell the people of their beliefs that they had about the one true living God. Now, the creation story that Abraham knew may have had influence in the Egyptian creation story itself. The Ishmaelites did become a nation of historical importance and influence. Anything's possible. But now that you have a better understanding about the creation story, let's delve a little deeper into the reason why Elohim chose to expose himself as a plural creator when the Christian concept suggests one creator. See you in the next video entitled, What's in a Name?